Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George-Affleck.
And it's time for
Winner, winner, chicken dinner, UnSpun.
Winner, winner, chicken at dinner, or shall I say au déjeuner?
Déjeuner, because you just got back from Montreal.
Oui. Oui, bonjour.
Yes.
Oui, bonjour.
Did you enjoy the beautiful city of Montreal?
I did, actually. I was there for a very whirlwind, exhilarating, and exhausting first assignment for Al Jazeera English.
Right.
It was something else. I ended up in the Justin Trudeau Liberal election night headquarters at the Fairmont there. It was quite the adventure. I could tell stories for days, George.
Great place to be if you win, terrible place to be if you lose.
And you know what? There was this sort of feeling over the course that obviously we were there in the afternoon to set up all the major media, all around us, and we were kind of tucked in the side there, and fascinating to watch, and sort of the tense optimism, that was sort of there when we arrived. And then when the polls started closing, there was this like continued sort of, I'm not sure optimism. And then when the big dump came, when the majority of the polls closed across the country.
Quebec and Ontario, as usual.
Yes. But the scoreboard watching, I tell people it did feel very similar to 2011 and the Stanley Cup run in terms of my reporting experience, having done both. Because you don't.
I mean, I don't watch sports, and that's why I'm into politics. I can't do both, so I think it's too much of time consuming. But I find politics a lot like sports.
I just experienced that in a major way, and then watching it escalate into what would become a victory speech in that room, and having one ear on the concession speeches and shots fired. So let's unpack some of this stuff, George. I want to tap into what you know to be true behind the scenes in politics. Let's start with the impacts that the fringe had on, well, frankly, Aaron O'Toole's Conservatives. Let's start with the People's Party of Canada impact on the Conservative Party, in your opinion.
Really bad. I was really harping on this. I was on Al Jazeera before the election, and I said this was that the PPC party was likely, it could win a couple of seats, it could, but what it would mostly do is take away votes from the Conservatives, and that's exactly what happened. They probably lost, I'm looking at about 20 ridings where they would have had those 500, those 600 votes, those 1,000 votes, 2,000 votes, Cloverdale being one of them out here in BC. These are ridings that are traditionally Conservative, and they flip to Liberal or NDP, but mostly Liberal, because the right split the vote. And this is classic politics. And I'm betting that there was funding going to PPC that was probably the Liberal Party, because that's what happens in politics. Suddenly donors are like, oh, let's give money to the party that's going to split the vote. So it really destroyed O'Toole's chances. And if he'd gotten those 20 seats, he would have the minority. And Trudeau. That's why the polling was very dead heat, because in effect, without take the PPC out, it was a dead heat. And but they were an upset. So the biggest challenge that O'Toole has now is he has to decide what he's going to do. He went moderate, which was effective to those of us who live in the cities. We liked it, but it wasn't enough to win any seats. And in fact, he did win any seats in the major ridings, but he lost a bunch in various places like the Atlantic. And he also drove people, a certain fringe, to the PPC party. And how does he want those people back? Can he survive if he does bring those people back? Can he survive without those people? That's the questions that he himself will be asking, that the party's going to be asking. Do we need to bring back the fringe in order to get a majority? The kind of, Harper managed to keep those fringe people happy, while also being not a super extremist. I know people might say that's not true, but he kept everybody happy and he was in government for 11 years. Can O'Toole do that? It's the same in BC. People underestimate Gordon Campbell's ability.
The dogs don't like it. Gordon Campbell's ability.
He kept all the people together, and Christy Clark had a little bit more challenge, and then now we are where we are, and it's really.
But times have changed too, though, right? Like that in your curve communications, in your crisis management piece, like when Harper was in government, he could skate sort of a little bit more between the fringe, the sort of what we call it the fringe, I
Mm-hmm.
guess here, where in the US it's the base, right? The
Mm.
whatever the base, the
Yeah,
more extreme
sure.
piece that keeps politicians, whether they believe it or not, or even some television cable network news people who are like, whoa, vaccines are for people with low testosterone when they are in fact vaccinated themselves, but they're doing it because it's like red meat to those who are
Yeah.
watching it and wanting to. So it's how does somebody in this era that is quite different, because I'm when I think about Stephen Harper, as you said, a long time prime minister in this country who
Mm-hmm.
managed to walk a very fine line on a number of issues that are usually big wedge issues, right?
But he also had minorities, and
Yeah,
it wasn't until the Liberals really fell apart that he managed to pull off his majority. So
good point.
leadership matters,
Yeah,
and
correct.
does O'Toole have the right personality? To win, to make people feel comfortable. I think if you ask around, certainly in the urban centers, it seems like people are like, "Oh, he's not so bad. He's not so bad." And this sort of centrist mentality that most cities have in Canada and the States. If you look at Democrats versus Republicans, Democrats control the cities and Republicans control the outside the cities. It's
Yeah,
no different here. Conservatives have almost the entire prairies and various other conservative areas, and the cities are controlled mostly by the Liberals or the NDP here in
yeah.
BC, a combination. So, but leadership matters. And so O'Toole, does he have the chops to resonate in the next election? Because I think we know for sure the NDP has a leader that's not going to, he's not going to survive. He'll survive, but he'll never be Jack Layton. I don't see that happening. He got 105 seats when he was in his final, run there.
Yeah.
So it's leadership matters. So and your competition matters. So if Trudeau decides to retire from politics in this within the next 5 years, because I don't think there'll be election in 2 years, unless the NDP decide to take them down. You're looking at 4 years, and whether Trudeau decides to stay, maybe he wants to compete with his dad and get more than time in office than his dad. I don't know. Whoever comes after Trudeau will be what the question will, is that person strong enough? And can the Liberals keep their act together? And generally, in a first past the post system, and I know people say, oh, we need proportional representation. It works. It works because leadership, it goes back and forth, left, right. It doesn't matter. It seems to just work that way. And I think that if we had proportional representation, guess how many seats the PPC would have? A lot.
A lot. Okay, so let's unpack a little bit about the narrative post results on election night. I mean, we all went in
Mm-hmm.
there thinking we're going to be here for days, and then we weren't. So it was decided fairly quickly. The Liberals with one more seat than they had on August the 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And many people, many Canadians saying, great $600 million futile exercise. And others saying,
Democracy is not cheap.
the other side of it, and I read a couple of op-ed pieces today that made me sort of think a little further into that, because obviously we don't want to spend more money that we don't have as taxpayers
Mm-hmm.
ever. Nobody does. But doesn't this remove from the opposition, whatever party it might be, not necessarily the official opposition, but his opposition, doesn't it remove that, we scandal, ethics, blah, 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 all the things that have hit him during this last 18 months? Because he has been reelected now, it is worth it for him, maybe.
Yes, I think, obviously he wanted a majority and that was his play. I
Obviously.
don't think he didn't get that, but he did get what he had. And it is, no matter what, and he did say this in his speech about this is a mandate. And it is because the challenge he would have had as we exit out of COVID, if that ever happens at this rate, people are going to start going, okay, but did he do a good job? And then they'll have all this stuff and a little bit about money. But generally the sense, the electorate is smart. They're intuitive. They know. And so their decision, even though you see different changes, that people call it a shift of a few key people, but it ends up where we were before. It means that's what people wanted. I really do think that this is, people are comfortable with a minority government, and they were comfortable with Liberals, and generally probably would have been comfortable if the Conservatives had got a minority. What the people in this country have proven is that with 4 or 5 or 6 political parties, that it's tough to get a majority. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe having ongoing forever minorities, not having two major political parties like they have in the States that will never or very seldom see majorities. And I don't know if that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. Yeah, it was expensive, 100%. And he did it completely out of, self-serving needs. But hey, you know what? It worked. We got what we asked for, which was the same as we had. And it cost $600 million, but it's better than the alternative, which is what? Fascism. I mean, what are you asking?
I love that.
Called an election. It costs $600 million. That's what it costs.
Yeah. Would it cost that 2 years from now?
Of course.
Would it cost that? It wasn't like this is money that wouldn't otherwise eventually been spent. It's like saying, I'm going to just, put this Band-Aid on the problem here and then do the full work 2 years from now and try and make like that's going to save money. I love the unspun nature of the statement that you just made. Like it's better than what? Fascism. Like democracy costs money. It does.
It's built into our system. 100%. And of course it was. Maybe the money could be waited a couple of years, but
for sure. Or it'll be more expensive.
We got out of a system. Hey, and guess what? The Conservatives ran a campaign. The NDP ran a campaign. If they really wanted to, they could have just stood up and said, "Okay, we'll just stay at home and not spend any money or not take the cash." What are we asking here, right?
Let's talk about the NDP briefly here, because you mentioned, Jagmeet Singh is not going to become Jack Layton. It was floated, I believe it was my Rick Mercer conversation last Thursday. I think it was for the UBCM. I had the fireside chat with Rick Mercer, which was so entertaining. Not that we were entertaining. Sorry. I wasn't throwing myself a compliment there. It was actually, he's so entertaining.
He's got as much gray hair as me now.
He does. You're very similar, you guys. We could all hang out together in the new times, in the next times. But he floated the idea that perhaps Jagmeet Singh isn't playing for that federal position, but perhaps a spot as Premier of Ontario.
Oh God, I can't imagine Ontario ever voting back at NDP. And if they were interested in the NDP, they would have shown it in this election, and they didn't. I think that's probably misguided. I think maybe more likely is Premier of BC. He lives here now, and somebody's got to come after Horgan. I think what we know for sure is that he doesn't resonate in a cross country way that Jack Layton did. Right. He doesn't have the momentum. If it was going to happen, it was going to happen in this election. It didn't happen. Is it enough to get him and give him the boot? I don't think so. Because you know what? He's good enough. He got him an extra few seats. They seem to have controlled their infighting for now, but he has to start asking himself, okay, what is my future?
He has to be able to answer the tough questions. Like when the question comes up, it's like, we own a pipeline. If you become prime minister, what do you do with it? And he pivoted. It's like, you can't do that. You can't, for the marginally engaged voter, they're going to see that and go, okay. And you don't have a costed out budget. You got a budget that says you're going to fix everything with no money.
I thought socialists loved controlling all things government and owning all the oil rights and all the oil. Isn't that what socialist governments do? They buy all the things. They nationalize the oil industry. Isn't that what they do? I mean, isn't that what they do? How do you square that circle? Is that what it's saying?
Circle, square. Green Party leader Annamie Paul last.
Yeah, in her riding, brutal.
I was feeling like
she really. I think I'm sad for her because she did a really good job in the debate. Yeah. There's somebody who had really no support from her own party. That party, talk about infighting and BS about not getting behind your leader, which probably I wonder was race based. Was it prejudice? Was it what was that all about? Because she seems quite competent, quite nice and smart, and was strong.
Cares, clearly cares. Clearly cares.
But her party, they got the same, they got two seats, right? So, she didn't do any worse than the previous person who seems to be stabbing her in the back at every chance she gets. So
it's wild, man.
Which is the worst thing to do. Get off, it's over. Let it go.
Yeah, if you want to continue to have that position, keep the position. Don't move out of the position and then
not cool.
Attack. It's not cool. It isn't. You're right. You're right about that. One more thing on the Conservatives, because I want to move to COVID-19 in our next portion of this podcast. We are at this moment trying to also inform people about who we are, because you are a great follow on Twitter at George George_Affleck on Twitter. I'm at Jody Vance, Jody with the Y, at Jody Vance on Twitter. And when you sign up for the Fin at the Orca.ca, you will be kept up to speed on all of the happenings in politics, both municipally, provincially, and federally, or globally, if there are things happening around the world. But I want to move into the COVID piece, but keep one foot in politics, because
Yes.
how much do you think, George, the Jason Kenney debacle management of COVID, by lifting everything, going, yeehaw, we're gonna have the greatest summer ever. Here we go, July 1st, and having Aaron O'Toole endorse that and that come back to haunt so close to an election, right? Like the
Yeah.
implosion of the COVID response as a result of that.
Well, that's where the PPC vote comes from. The PPC vote isn't just anti, vaxxers, or it's a mixture of libertarians and all sorts of people who believe in, the government needs to be looser, and that there's, all that kind of stuff. There's lots of different kinds of people that voted for this, but there's some people that we, are scary too. But what it did, what the challenge for O'Toole is he looked a bit too flip floppy, and that's the worst thing you can do in politics is do a flippity flop, because that's what did Adrian Dixon, and when he ran for premier, and that's kind of, so then you've got your supporters go, oh wait a minute, he's looking a bit like wishy washy on. I mean, either
Excuse
you're
me, the
behind
dogs
it.
are barking as my kids walking through the door. Come
Hello,
in, close the door.
dogs and kids.
I'm currently recording my podcast. Nice to see you.
You know
Brady's
what?
home.
What was it? Who's that famous actor who says never want to act with kids or dogs ever?
Kids or dogs? Well, I just had to do with both. Happy,
Yes.
go take the dogs with you. Go.
They're
I
so
will come and
happy to
you.
see him.
I know they are. They're all like, go guys. So what you were saying was about the
Yeah, so I just think that
party
it
conservative
just
piece.
it just got it. It showed it just fostered that split, and it lost him the election to a certain degree, along with a whole bunch of other things. So I mean, the Liberals would have been strategic in their approach to these ridings where they knew they had a chance. They would have been doing all sorts of things that you will never know about,
Right.
to push that vote. Either if it's not going to be for the Liberals or the NDP, it's going to be for the PPC or something like that. So, like, if you're not going to vote conservative, then vote. There is all sorts of stuff that happens that is so complicated through digital media. We know this all happens through advertising. Through every market would have had different campaigns depending on what the goals were, and that's the thing with digital marketing, especially. You can be very strategic in your messaging by neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so if you say in Granville you want the message to be this or that, then you put that message in that neighborhood.
Tuck it right in there. Look at your curve communications coming into play there. You brought up Granville, and as we're watching the results coming in, we should mention this before we move further into COVID-19 and some updates on that here in BC. But Talib Noor Mohammed won that Vancouver Granville. Like, the count just came in, a few minutes ago.
It's Wednesday, by the way. We're recording a day early.
Wednesday,
just for those people who are listening, and we're still waiting for the results in Nanaimo. But yeah, that's it's surprising how close that was, because, and actually surprising how bad the Conservatives did there. That is a riding that usually flips between the Conservatives and the Liberals. NDP are usually never in there. And it's a fairly new riding in some ways. It was a split of the other ridings, but still, it's got Shaughnessy, this very fancy neighborhood. It's very wealthy. Yes. The dogs. Is that your kids or the kid or the dog?
The dogs now. They're
fine. I can't hear it. It's fine.
Okay, fine. It's very loud in here.
No, it's fine. I can't.
Okay, this is an adventure. Welcome to my life of the last couple of weeks here.
They missed you on your little trip to Montreal.
Oh,
anyways, it's that Granville riding. It is really generally it's surprising how bad the Conservative candidate did. I thought they had a good chance, and they should have won. I think if they'd run a more high-profile candidate there, they probably would have won that riding. But the other two candidates, the candidate who won as of today, he's run many times. He briefly ran for Vancouver mayor in the last election and stepped out. So
really,
yes, he had some kind of health problem. He stepped away. So he's run many times. I think he ran in North Vancouver for MP or MLA. I don't know. He's run he likes to run. So it's the first time he's won. So congratulations.
Congratulations to you. Okay, let's get to
it's the Adrian Carr approach to running for office. Just keep doing it till you win. I think she ran
because it's name recognition. You've said that before. When it comes to people going in, people who are not engaged in politics, and you go in, you see a name you recognize on a ballot, and you don't even know why you recognize the name. You just recognize it, so you mark that X in the box. Does 100%. Does this Liberal minority win for Justin Trudeau, does this make Premier John Horgan happy?
Oh yeah, he dodged a bullet on this one because he definitely was helping Trudeau, but he also wanted to make sure he didn't alienate the NDP because the NDP now control the balance of power in Ottawa, so they're getting a lot of goodies of their own that they'll get to keep. Trudeau's going to have to keep them happy, and if Horgan had ended up with a Conservative government, they would not have been very nice to him for sure. They would have not be good to BC. So he has now been given lots of good luck for the next several years with this kind of a coalition, really, for our purposes.
So the numbers in on COVID for this Wednesday, looking at the vaccination rates in our province, like we are playing with high 80s for first dose, like 87.5%, and into the 80th percentile for 2 doses. So really good news. That's a 12 plus number, and in the all eligible adults number, it's obviously even higher because adults were vaccinated much sooner than the younger people. So, but still seeing some concerning outbreaks in the province, and wow, in Northern Health, like talks of the few ICU beds available in Northern Health kind of busting at the seams, and whether or not we're headed towards sort of an Alberta situation where the healthcare system in Northern Health is perhaps in danger of becoming overwhelmed. And pregnant women, oh my God. Pregnant women in ICU, unvaccinated pregnant women.
I even know people who work in long-term care, and they have, that their fellow workers are still up north and resistant to getting vaccinated. And you're like, but of course they're mandated now to be vaccinated. And this guy, the nurses union, as well, very divided now as of this week. The head of the nurses union quit because of the conflict going on related to their decision to be supportive of choice of getting a vaccination. But the north is definitely a challenge, and it doesn't take very many people to fill up the ICU beds up there. They don't have a ton, so they're already flying people down here into the Lower Mainland and take up our beds. And I think they said 500 surgeries and have been delayed because of this. Come on, people.
Yeah,
are you
read my column from last week on that one, guys? But there are some COVID-19 designated hospitals. I did not know that. The first time I've read that is that there are 3 main ones. When they are helicoptering people in, they are consolidating, which I think, obviously, I agree with. Interesting to note, and this is a sidebar.
Can you imagine being a staff person at that place? I mean, talk about risking your life.
Exactly, but it takes a very special, incredible individual to take on the role of a healthcare worker, personal care worker. It is amazing. And then there are the fringe, because there's fringe in everywhere. I'm going to tell you the story that I neglected to give you earlier. And this is my brother's experience in Tsawwassen. There's a very vocal nurse. I won't name her here, but she's very vocal. She's out on social media. She's a complete and utter anti-vaxxer. She has kids who have told she's mandated that her children are not allowed to mix with other children who are vaccinated because they shed virus. She apparently works at a major hospital that I won't even name that, just to keep it clean. She voted on Monday at the local elementary school that is a polling station, and my brother was there with a number of, we grew up in Tsawwassen, so everybody knows everybody, and they're all sort of standing outside the polling station, and they're looking at one another, hey, how's it going, how's it going, how's it going? Why are we standing outside? And one person said, can you guess? So this one woman who's married to someone who works in law enforcement, both of them are anti-vaxxers, and she went in and refused to put on a mask. But you can't be refused your vote. So they had to close the polling station to everybody, have her come in maskless to cast her ballot, and then they had to sanitize the entire place and reopen. That is so messed up.
Mail in your ballot.
Mail in your ballot. Like, what are you doing? This is a person that's trusted with our most vulnerable population as a nurse. Come on. Come on. Somebody needs to figure out who I'm talking about and do something about it. No names, just saying.
Anyways, freedom of choice, but that's just provocative and not necessary. That's come on. We're doing something here democratic about nothing, it's just. Anyways,
I needed to get that
87%. So based on the numbers, we're pushing 90. Hopefully, we can get to 90%. But there's like a 3% window in there. Come on, let's get to 90, because Denmark, as we know, got to 90% a couple of weeks ago, and now they're wide open.
Lifted everything.
Everything's normal.
Vaccine passports, guys. Don't
So
even
if
need
you
them.
want to get rid of the vaccine passports, go get vaccinated.
Go
Ding
get
dong.
vaccinated. Ding dong. No. Let's get to municipal politics. There was a nice note out of, where was it? Porco Quitlam?
Oh, Brad West, I totally, went after him a little bit on NW earlier today. He loves to let you and I know when he does something
Little DM.
new out there that we're not doing in Vancouver.
Sliding in our DMs.
I know he's doing that. We're making patios 100% for the next, not pay a dime until 2023 or something. So good on you, Brad
The
West.
expanded patio program confirmed.
Yes, they
permanent.
have. Yes, permanent. They are doing the same in Vancouver, but who knows how that'll work. But hey, what we didn't talk about in the pre-show? The mayor getting attacked at the wine store down the street from where I live. I don't know if you heard that. Maybe you missed it.
I saw it. I saw some stories flying around on it, and then I thought that he was going to talk about it, but I hadn't heard anything. He got attacked.
It's a case. There's an ongoing case. The guy's dead. It's all very surreal. The whole story is very surreal. But he was, it's not cool. And it took the police half an hour to get there. If this is going to keep happening, and this is Canada. Come on. This is somebody who was hates, Kennedy-Stewart, but there's no need for that in his private life to attack him while he's shopping for a bottle of wine.
If I saw the members of the park board walking by, I would be like, "How's it going? This is real life. Hi, how's it going?"
You just wouldn't know what they look like because except for
I only know them from their bios, and their bios are misleading.
Anyways, I'm worried that this is a trend. We saw it's happening in Victoria. It's happening. There's this violence against elected people and leaders in our community. This is not cool. And you know what this is going to lead to? Guess what? Private security. That's a taxpayer cost. What's the mayor going to have security detail now? Is this where we're going in Canada? Yeah. I mean, this is not Canada. This is not how we act. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Or
vote them out.
And exactly. And those who do that,
democracy.
Those who do that need to have swift consequences. There shouldn't be this slow walk to, maybe they'll just calm down. No, that's not on. So also speaking of crime, because that is a crime and it should be a crime. It should be punished to the fullest extent.
Against a politician, it's a very bad crime, actually. You can get a lot of trouble for that.
Yeah. So two things I want to get to before we run out of time here. There's still ongoing more smashed windows in the downtown core that you've seen. We talked about that last week. Yeah,
this latest one I think is up on another one. Davey and John Clearidis tweeted it out just before the show. He's kind of leading the charge on this, and I see Melissa's got a motion coming forward at the next council related to this. But this council is very divided on where they stand on enforcement, and it is, I think, a challenge.
Is very divided on so many things.
Well, and enforcement is not the answer. We've talked about the broken windows and all that stuff. It's a balance. You need to keep the, okay. Here's your column this week. Just came out today. You talk about garbage cans in Montreal and the way, it's a really great column. It's just hot off the presses.
Hot off the presses.
I just read it. But you talk about basics like garbage cans and the number of garbage cans and that kind of stuff, as we have heard, and Kirk LaPointe wrote a great column in BIV about this. You just got to, if you don't take care of the small things, then bigger stuff. I was going to get us an E there.
Don't get us our E, but you're right. I love that. I loved that article by Kirk LaPointe. Agreed. And you said it last week. It's like letting graffiti remain. Next thing you know, it's everywhere. And there's, I love graffiti. It's art. I get it. There's a lot of great art out there and expression is important, but tagging in communities, it's proven. You said it last week. It's proven to escalate. It's proven to create an environment.
Every week, our front door down here, the wall there gets tagged every week. Every week, the building owner comes with a paintbrush. Nope, can't put up with this. So there's no graffiti on this building. But guess what? We have to go every week and deal with it. And then they come back and they tag it again. It'd be great if they stop tagging, but they tag and they tag and they tag. So you got to go paint. You got to go paint. You got to find the budget for that. I pay for that through my triple net lease here. And we pay for it as taxpayers. But the taxpayers are not enough of that money, of that $1 billion budget. And by the way, right now, and I tweeted this out and got a lot of pickup on this, staff are sitting down literally right now. I know this. They're sitting down and they're putting together their plan of their budget. They're going to present the early version of the budget, will come out in the next couple of weeks to staff, to council. And council have given them a mandate of They can't go up more than 5%. I think it's on the budget. That came from the mayor. That's tough. That's tough, with all the stuff going on,
A
which means
lot.
things are going to get cut. And guess what? They'll probably cut first. Probably not. It's going to be street cleaning. It's going to be
The
garbage
basics, right?
cans. It's going
Come
to be the
on.
basic, because they're not going to cut their housing program. They're not going to cut their social services programs. They're not going to cut this or that. They're not going to cut all those programs that we don't even know what they do or know what their budgets are, because we can never figure it out because the budget's so opaque. They're going to cut the streets cleaning, sidewalks, trees. Park board will probably have a budget cut. I mean, it's just, where does it end? We have a $1.3 billion budget and $1 billion capital budget, and you can't find a few $1 million to put a few garbage cans around?
Come on.
Come on.
Come on. Tag it with the Labor Council. Tell me why that's a big deal that they're not supporting the vision.
Real quick. So Vision came out this week saying, a call for nominations for our council candidates this coming election, which is next year, which okay, Vision's back. No surprise. I've been predicting it for a long time.
You have.
But what was interesting today was that that the Labor Council, District Labor Council, which is sort of the unions, where they put their money behind candidates that support our union supporting, and all supported Vision Vancouver, said they've made it public that they're not going to support this new version of Vision, even though they don't even know who the candidates are, which is interesting. That really kills because Vision always had the ability to get a lot of money from developers and a lot of money from the unions. If they don't get the money from the unions, then they're just like the NPA. They're going to have to rely on the private donors. So maybe that's what they think, the Vision is too much like NPA. I don't know. So does that kill Vision, or does that make Vision NPA, or does that mean what? I don't know. But it's a bad hit, and that means likely they're putting their weight behind probably Kennedy-Stewart and any other NDP candidates. So One City, Cope. The Green Party, probably anybody who's supportive of their unions and the increases in the unions will get the money, and the people power that they have, door knockers.
Yeah. Well, we saw and the people standing on all the street corners with the signs, getting paid their union wage to stand there for a day. You know what, George? No shortage of things to talk about yet again. We've gone over a little bit.
I know.
We'll do it all again next week, and we'll reconvene on a Thursday. Thanks for doing it a little bit early here for me. I've got a long day tomorrow of committee meetings. I can't say it's a secret, but it's really cool. I'll tell you about it sometime.
Okay. Bye.